Need a search engine optimization SEO services? Then get in touch with our professional and friendly team to learn more about our range of custom and tailored services designed to suit your exact needs. Every one of our professionals have acquired years of experience, which ensures you get the very best. Our experienced staff is waiting to hear from you and to answer any specific questions that you may have on how we can meet your needs. Just ask for a consultation and let us prove our commitment to you as we promise to maintain the highest level of quality and commitment. Your satisfaction is our prime concern. So please, don't hesitate to get in contact with us and let us show you all the great options we have.
And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio on the Mighty Mighty Twitter, radio, and of course the mothership, coalitionradio.us. Listen, the lines are open at 401-205-3738. Lots of things to talk about. First of all, my good friend and collaborator Joe Calabro was just on talking about golfnewsri.com. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I think folks are going to really enjoy that, particularly at a time when, well, seemingly everything fun in the world seems to be being taken away from us. Not to complain, right now there are people who are seriously ill. There are emergency care providers who just frankly have been stretched to their limits. It's heartbreaking to read about a doctor who allegedly took her life this past week in New York City, which is, sadly enough, finds it the term ground zero being used with regard to a tragedy. The difference being that this tragedy, as horrific as 9/11 was, and full disclosure, I lost friends of mine in 9/11, at least you can take some comfort that the tragedy was, if you will, finite. Not for the people involved in it, certainly, not for the families who lost loved ones, but there was at least at large a beginning to an end, and this one continues. And it continues, and it continues. Seemingly endlessly. And the cause of the tragedy is unseen, unfelt, until one day it is seen and felt. And of course, I'm talking about the folks who are asymptomatic. It's amazing how the national vernacular, we've all become armchair epidemiologists. The fact that I can even say that, armchair epidemiologist, is breathtaking in of itself. One of the political issues that's being raised right now is, of course, the financial implications. As COVID sort of recedes ever so slightly into the background, where states are taking upon themselves to try and normalize economically, the question of who pays the bills has come in. One of the great national questions is what happens, as seems to be a part of every process like this, when folks take legislation that was enabled and designed and configured and built and thought about, and again, as they always seem to do, move away from their original, the original thought behind it. I go back all the way to some of the legislation after Katrina. And again, forgive me if my years are off sync here, my times. But in the run-up to the Iraq War, there was one of these resolutions that was passed at the Senate level opposing the Iraq War. But of course, you couldn't just come together and feel like that you were just dealing with the Iraq War. Nope, you had to have mission creep. So in order to get people to sign on to the resolution opposing the war, you had to, Katrina relief was thrown in, and this was thrown in, that was thrown. It was larded with all sorts of unrelated items. And I often, well, not that often, fortunately, but I tell the story of happening to meet Senator Jack Reed, a much younger Senator Jack Reed, as he was leaving Cumberland Town Hall, seemingly without entourage. And I just paid a property tax bill. It was probably overdue, and I was in high dudgeon over something. And I ran into him, and I said, I dressed him down. He and I went nose to nose. And I told him how disappointed I was that he would invoke an opportunity to rule on, if you will, the validity of one of these famous police engagements, these police actions, as we call them, and to muddy that with essentially pork. And his retort was to be, well, aren't you concerned about the fate of Hurricane Katrina victims? And I said, don't question my Katrina cred. My sister's house was wiped off the face of the earth. All that was left was a concrete slab. She was a couple blocks in from the Gulf of Mexico, her condo. The building ceased to exist. So don't question my Katrina cred. I pointed out how disappointed I was, as he was a graduate of the United States Military Academy, that he would muddy the waters, if you will, with something as important as, quote unquote, reacting to, because we must always do something, right? But take upon himself and themselves in the United States Senate to weigh in on the issue of the day, which is, of course, our military involvement in the Middle East, and sully that with pork barrel spending. And that he shamed people in the United States military. I'm surprised he didn't deck me. But I was so angry, he probably just didn't. So it's telling. And we just repeat that and repeat that and repeat that. And we just do. We just do. And we dishonor the people that matter. And so the reason I bring this all up is, of course, is that the President of the United States Senate put out the word, and that he would not allow, from his seat, COVID-19 funding, if you will, to be used as a bailout for bloated pension systems at the state and municipal level. He's right. I don't very often agree with the Republican president of the United States Senate, but he's right. Terrible decisions at the state and local level need to have some type of moral hazard. As a nation, we bail out everybody. There are no repercussions anymore for anything. So we have just buried ourselves in debt. So what's another $500 billion? Well, folks, we're way beyond the point where we were in any type of safe zone at all whatsoever. We're way past that. So yeah, it does matter. I have not seen any budget cuts at the state level since this crisis happened, which needed to happen immediately. And again, I'm not talking about the guy working in the kitchen. I'm not talking about the guy or gal who's a first responder. I'm not talking about that. So don't you dare try to conflate that, because that's the game that's played. No, what I'm talking about is the $150,000 a year project manager or the $125,000 a year public relations flack. All needs to go. Just needs to go. Thank you very much. We're grateful for your service. However, just like in the dreaded private sector, there's been, and there haven't been. I'm not aware of anybody. And please, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to apologize. Please, 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 correct me. Happy. Only so thrilled to have someone take me down on that one. So yeah, their needs. I mean, the type of safeguards that weren't put in place by the small business fund, so that the Los Angeles Lakers found themselves the recipients of essentially a giveaway for their payroll. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. Really? And actually, the people on Thayer Street on the that burger chain they were talking about, I'm okay with them because they were really nice to me. Just kidding. So there's a national conversation that needs to be had, and it's a shame that it's an absolute shame it's a crying shame that it has to happen in the middle of a tragedy. Meanwhile, in LP land, Justin Amash has decided to announce on April 28th, that he's going to get into the presidential race. We had a compelling series of interviews this week, and we've got a couple more to do. And by the way, at this moment in time, I always put out to folks that if, in fact, they are interested in running for office at any level and they represent a liberty perspective, they are welcome to join us on the air here at coalitionradionetwork.com. There is no charge. I've said long and often our position on independent candidates, we're not interested in your fundraising. We're not interested in your polling. We're not interested in if you're going to win. We want to know why you should. And that's the kind of conversation we had. So yesterday we had Jacob Hornberger from Jacob for Liberty. The meeting was spiritual, absolutely spiritual. And I've taken good things from all the candidates. Every one of them have been in the air. I am proud as hell of the individuals running for the President of the United States under the Libertarian banner. Absolutely proud as hell. I can't tell you, in fact, how proud I am of these people. I wish I could mush them into one. Because, quite frankly, there's elements of each one of them that I find ennobling. How's that for the word of the day? Ennobling. With Vermin Supreme, just as an example, I can't name every candidate who's been on, but let's just say for Vermin Supreme, we talked extensively about organizing people, the dynamics, the non-aggression principle, what it takes to blow that type of activism up. The line I take away from last night when I described that my feeling was that was incrementalism was the devil, Mr. Hornberger asked me how I would feel if we were back in the 19th century and the opportunity to, if you will, to make slavery illegal across the land. But instead was advised that why don't we phase slavery out? Why don't we step it back a little bit of time? We'll bring in gradually their right to own property. And as far as education, let's revisit that in a meeting and a resolution to be held, say, 5 years from now. We'll sunset this law unless, of course, we decide to reapprove it after 5 years. Balderdash. Best analogy ever. Every now and then someone says something, and it's happened to all of us, even as someone as verbose as I am, every now and then someone says something which encapsulates, brings to life, puts into words a loose accumulation of thoughts. How about if we phased out slavery gradually instead of just eliminating it? Scoreboard. If any of Mr. Hornberger's people are listening, I'm going to use that one. I will give him full attribution, as I always do when I use catchphrases or word tracks from people. How would you, and I'm not quoting him exactly, but effectively, let's phase out slavery instead of eliminating it. Oh, that's fair. And anyone who's listening to the show knows how I feel about the word fair. Biggest 4-letter word in America. So I have been blessed over the last week or two to have some wonderful people on this show. And they keep coming. Working on the calls. Baby steps. Getting libertarians to dial a phone to have a conversation. Or getting anybody to. It's interesting because I was kind of saying to myself, oh man, how do I get people to call? We've only been on the air a few weeks, but I got to get people to call. Well, I was listening to WPRO, which is a flagship station here in Rhode Island. Some people do some wonderful work on that. Kind of Rhode Island's town hall, I've kind of nicknamed it. And I listened, and most of the same people were the ones who call in all the time. Hint, hint. Yeah, that would be me, of course. How do I get people to make that leap to make a phone call? And here you've got open lines. And there's no tyranny of the mute button here. We don't mute people. We give opportunities for people to talk about what they want to talk about, to finish their thoughts, to really take an opportunity to present a case to people. Because that's what's interesting to me. I'm not looking for a 30-second soundbite. That should be abundantly clear. I'm looking for folks who want to develop an approach, a solution. That's what we're trying to do here. So open lines. Starting a little earlier tonight in the hopes that we can get people to kind of let it all go. So, do I sound like Scrooge when I say that I'm not interested in having the federal government bail out states' profligate spending? Or is that simply an acknowledgement of we've gone way too far? Because we will be in the same solution. Every time we bail Rhode Island out from someplace, there's no admission of, oh, yeah, I screwed up this time. I won't do it again. I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise. No one even pretends. No one even pretends. I know, I ran out of Yacht Club. I got to get down to Yacht Club. I got to get down to Yacht Club. I have to get down to Yacht Club soda. I need me a Yacht Club intervention. I need some Yacht Up. I need some of their root beer. I need some of the cream soda. I'm reduced to donkeys as a caffeine delivery system. And let me tell you, doing this late at night, it's a caffeine delivery system. So 401-205-3738. If you'd like to take a moment and call in, please do. There's two ways to watch this show. We'd love people to experiment a little bit and go over to coalitionradionetwork.com. That, of course, is the mothership, if you will, as we say. coalitionradionetwork.com. Michelle Renee, otherwise known as Mama Michelle. I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but announcing a formation of an exploratory committee on Twitter is not announcing a run for candidacy. You are correct, ma'am, as you always are. The Twitterverse and the Libertyverse is all a Twitter and a gag and a gog over the announcement that Justin Amash is reached yet another incremental step in something of which I'm not sure. Who forms an exploratory committee in April and the election's in November? That's what I want to know. Who does that? I mean, my God. So if you want to call in and complain about Justin Amash, feel free to do so. Ad hominem attacks fully allowed. Feel free to engage. Let me know what you really think. So those are the two questions I'd like to put out there tonight. How do you feel about Justin Amash? And should the federal government be bailing out states for their pensions and situations that they were engaged? A guy named Vincent A. Buddy Cianci was the former mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, the longest-serving mayor in American history, twice convicted of something at some level, generally regarded as bringing the city of Providence through a renaissance. Bippity-boppity-boo. He called situations like this a frittata. The Amash situation. And again, should the federales bail out the states who seem incapable of doing anything on their own behalf? Acknowledging, of course, that they've been handled a tremendous pile of you know what. But there are states out there that did the right thing. They saved money. They created environments where businesses could succeed. Should they be treated the same, should they be effectively picking up the tab for states like New York and Rhode Island? This is not, as the Republicans, as certain governors would conflate, the infamous Gerald Ford to a guy named Abe Beam moment. This is not. And hi, this is Pat Ford. I'm the host of the Coalition. Who do I have this pleasure of speaking to, and where are you from?
Hey, Pat. This is Rohan Desai from Austin, Texas.
Hey, thanks for calling in, buddy. I certainly recognize your name. I know that you were very active in a number of campaigns, and you're. I'm going to paraphrase one of the most loathsome neocon television/talk radio hosts in America, and I'm going to say you're a great libertarian. and you're supposed to say you're a great libertarian, and then we engage in 5 minutes of mutual backstabbing. Backslapping. I'm sorry. Oops.
we can set aside some time for the backstabbing after.
Yeah, that's at the Rump Convention, right? The affectionately referred to as a Rump Convention. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to. If there's a Rump Convention, I'm going to show up, and I'm just going to propose all sorts of outrageousness. everything from ponies to you need 105% to change the standard statement of principles to, to actually ordaining Kim Ruff as a proven saint, because we need saints in the libertarian system, right? I'll go crazy. But you took the time to call tonight, of which I am grateful. What's on your mind tonight?
I've actually been hearing from my Democrat friends about Justin Amash becoming the Libertarian nominee. And it is concerning. It is deeply concerning to me and to anyone who's worked within the party for any length of time as an activist, as a contributor, that someone can essentially just walk in the door and expect to receive a nomination. And the criticism I'm hearing, or I guess the positive points I'm hearing about him is that he's got name recognition. And I certainly have a great deal of respect and admiration for Justin Amash and his record as a legislator. However, a legislator for the Republican Party does not make necessarily a good presidential candidate for the LP. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're after name recognition and the fact that people know him and he can pay lip service to our platform and to being a member of our party, I think I can find a woman in New York who can claim to do those very same things, who actually came close to beating Donald Trump in the popular vote in 2016. Why don't we make her the LP nominee?
Great point. Why not? Listen, how about we do this?
Exactly.
Let's open it up to everybody in the world. All right, everybody in the world. Whoever wants it, let's tell you what, let's put it up for auction. Let's tell you what.
Exactly. That would be the libertarian way to go, right?
When I get off the show, how about I just go onto if I can still have an eBay account. Does anyone still have eBay accounts? I'm going to go onto my eBay account and I'm going to put up for sale, for auction, the libertarian nomination for the presidency of the United States. How about, could you go with that?
You'd have to count me out, Pat. I just got this job.
but yeah, I want. After the Johnson Weld, I'll call it the Weld debacle, because there's a place, always be a place in my heart for Gary Johnson. I want someone who's like overtly, insanely libertarian. Before she dropped out, before I was an alternate to the LNC, I did 1 or 2 endorsements, as if my word means anything, right? But Kim Ruff,
yes, absolutely. And
Kim Ruff was.
I would just like to preface this by saying that you are a great libertarian.
but Kim was on the show probably half a dozen times, and she could. I talk about this all the time. Because we do, the show has traditionally been a once a week 3-hour show, and we're trying to expand it, okay, into something like this talk radio format. And Kim was and is still astonishingly good at messaging, because number 1, she means it. Number 2, she means it. Number 3, she's an extremely articulate individual. And number 4, she means it. Really helps when you mean it. And we had there are 2 national observances for sex workers a year. And it's very, very serious. And on one of them, it was in December, I had about 6 different folks on the show in the space of 3 hours. Folks who were active sex workers, folks who were allies academically, legally. They were commentators, researchers, people talking about the sex worker movement. And I had her on last, just kind of for about 15 minutes, as just sort of put an exclamation point, the cherry on the top, the whipped cream. And in 15 minutes, she roared through a stunning denunciation of the duopoly, an indictment of the federal government and the Department of Justice, an ode to individual and personal rights. It was just, I'm sitting there going, and it's not easy to shut me up, but I'm sitting there kind of, what's the term, slack-jawed, to the point where I snipped that part out and I sent that to progressive feminists who were astonished, because in the space of 15 minutes, she single-handedly destroyed every cliche, every denunciation, every metaphor, every cheap shot that they could aim at libertarians. Just wiped it right out. I want someone like that. What are you looking for?
I agree with you that.
What are you looking for?
I had the pleasure and honor of working on Kim Ruff's campaign for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I have not, in the few years that I've been active within the broader movement, I have not seen or heard a better messenger and a better, a person who can express our platform, our positions, and the reasoning behind those positions and defend them, more importantly, to outsiders, as well as Kim Ruff had. And I think a lot of libertarians, not just me and you, are looking for that voice and for someone who has the principles and the outlook that they can also project and defend effectively. There are a lot of principled libertarians out there, but not all of them are able to defend them to an audience that consists of Republicans, Democrats, and libertarians. And I just don't see a candidate making headway without the ability to be able to defend those positions from all sides.
Right. It takes, and you know what? And we're blessed because we do have some wonderful candidates. In the past week, I've had, I believe, 4 or 5 different candidates, and they all represented fairly similar visions, and they all had individual strengths and character. I mean, each one of them in a conversational format. Ken, Phil, Vermin, Jacob, just nailed it in each respective way. There was a moment last night where I had Jacob Hornberger on, and one of my mantras, and I want to give you the mic because I want you to tell me what you think. One of my mantras is that incrementalism is the devil. Reader's Digest version, I'm old enough to have seen a number of initiatives where instead of going for the gold, folks settled for baby steps. Inevitably, the baby steps that were given ended up being roadblocks to real success and real change. And so I mentioned that to Jacob, and he came back to me a minute or so later, and he said, Pat, I want you to, and I'm paraphrasing, the video's up there, all the candidates I've had on have been wonderful in terms of analyzing what we believe in. But the analogy that Jacob used, and it was the first time I've heard anyone use this, was, Pat, what if someone in the 19th century had said to you, when you said we need to eliminate slavery, why don't we take our time? Why don't we do it in steps? Yes, let's eliminate slavery in steps. Now I'm projecting what he would say, but to develop it further, tell you what, we'll sunset the law, but we'll do a gradual 20% year phase out of slavery over 5 years, and then we'll incorporate a sunset, which then if folks want to eliminate the sunset of the provision, you know where I'm going with this, right? I mean, we take the strongest initiatives of our movement and we allow people to soft pedal them, homogenize them, reduce them to a thin glaze, which it tastes so good and is completely empty of anything nutritional whatsoever. That's what we do. And acceding to the fill-in-the-blank light of this 4 years, who will get 3 or 4%, we miss the opportunity to engage in the type of foundation that we so desperately need to do as libertarians. But I'm on this mic for hours. What do you think? What's the approach you would take? Kim's left the race, sadly. What should we do as a party moving forward?
I think to answer your question in the most straightforward way possible, and with the least amount of distractions toward other candidates, I would say that we need to focus on growing the party, because there has been, and we've seen this more and more, every time there's a government stimulus or something that's perceived as being unfair to people outside of corporate interests and outside of special interest groups, I think we've seen a groundswell. And I think Berman's actually done a really good job of tapping into that groundswell of popular support, of where we can grow the party in meaningful terms. I also think that what we've been able to accomplish in the last election cycle, especially in states like Pennsylvania, Indiana, the more local offices that libertarians hold, and the more we gain power in that way, which is not the same as incrementalism. It's more about getting our voices heard where they matter closest to home. I think maybe that is the best way forward for our party, because I think that more and more that we get people to see that libertarianism is a very valid and a strong third option, And we have work to do to build it up to that point. But I think the more we can get that done, the better it is for our party's prospects moving forward, because it's not just about who's in the White House that matters. It also matters who's in your local mayor's mansion.
Mm-hmm.
It also matters who's in your state house. And those laws, of course, passed by those people often affect your day-to-day life a whole lot more than they do. When we talk about things like statewide assault weapons ban, it's not coming from the president. It's coming from your state house. When we talk about marijuana legalization state by state, that's not White House policy necessarily that affects you so much as your state house or your city. So I think maybe that is the way forward, but I think in the short term, we do need to grow the party in sheer numbers. And I think that attracting disaffected young people from all other corners of the political spectrum, we need to have a sort of big umbrella moving forward, because I just don't see that if we get back into the mode we've been in of trying to out-libertarian each other, I think that is a losing proposition for the party. And I think that's a losing proposition from an electoral standpoint as well.
I agree completely. Something you might be interested in, LPTV, which is an effort started out by Dan Fishman and Nick Sarwark, is a Facebook Live channel. They use their own software, but it's all the links and everything are on the LPTV. I'd ask people to like that page. They're starting to run a number of programs. They've asked me, and we've done it for 3 weeks now, on Friday nights. It's called An Hour with the Candidates. And I find out, and people have started reaching out to me, which is rewarding, individual local, what we call down ballot races. And we have 2 of them out per week on the show. Each one talks for a half hour, I should say. I asked them, we have a conversation, I should say. I don't ask them questions, but I don't interrogate them, but we have a conversation about their community, their district, whatever they're running for in. We talk about the makeup, the economic, the social makeup of their community, and what issues resonate for that particular group of people, and how they're approaching those issues through a libertarian perspective. The point being, to your point, we don't need these people to go out and try to teach folks at a town council or in a town council district about Mises. They're not interested. Now, some of them might be after they get to know our candidates, and that's great. But they're interested in, what are you going to do about my property tax bill? What are you going to do about fill in the blank? And it's been wildly successful as far as the conversation goes, because it has become clear that we've got some awesome down ballot candidates. Awesome. I mean, we had 2 young women running for town councils that just blew it out of the water with their knowledge of their district, what the issues were, their outreach, the fact that they were finding ways to act like council people. Just, wow. We had 2 folks this weekend, Richard Menzo from New Hampshire and Sasha Cohen from Illinois. Sasha's running for Illinois 70. Richard is running to be the treasurer of a county government. Both of them have extensive experience, despite the fact that they're younger folks. I think Richard's 21, Sasha's 23. And I only bring them up because this is the most recent show that's most clear in my mind right now. But both of them have already extensive campaign and extensive governmental hands-on experience. And both of them are young, and both of them have already and are running great campaigns despite the challenges of COVID. And so if we could take things in that direction, and those are the people who, I'm not sure which one of them, some of it's luck, some of it's work, some of it's life, but I'm convinced that by the year's done, one of those people that we're going to interview this year in the run-up to the election will in fact be the presidential nominee 10, 20 years from now. And we'll do so from a completely different perspective. Now, what's your thought on an effort like that?
That is really inspiring. In fact, I'd like to throw a name out there, and this is someone that I know and have spent time with, and he's challenging. Have you heard of Elliot Sherman?
I've heard that, and that's why. And let's talk about that candidate, but also take a moment after we're done to message me or to reach out to them and have them reach out to me, whatever's easier, because I want to get people on the air. Because the other
absolutely we'll do it.
Because the other advantage of this is that for many people, not all, Some of them have extensive screen time, but as I call it, in a family-friendly Liberty environment where the host is more interested in having a conversation, not gotcha, but we break the ice in them being on video. And you could see the change even within the half hour. A lot of people are nervous about being on video for the first time. They haven't done it. They're smart, they're articulate, they've got a vision, they've got a messaging, but it's the first time you're on video. So what we want to do is give them the experience of practice, and they can call in my show. They can call into an hour with the candidates anytime that I can promote libertarian candidates at any level to get them over the hurdle and get practice at messaging and how to reach out to, as we lovingly refer to them as the normies. I'm all about that. So now tell me about this candidate. Who is this now? This is
Elliot Sherman. He's actually challenging Dan Crenshaw for a congressional seat.
I'm gonna surprise you. Elliot was one of our inaugural guests. So we have.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
So go back to go to LPTV, and Elliot was already on the show, and we had a lot of fun with the fact that he was engaging the hero, the conservative hero of SNL, because while I don't doubt that congressman he's running against is a fine man, I'm not here to disparage people, he has certainly been a disappointment on multiple levels once you get past the hype of him being on Saturday Night Live. And so to your point, you're right. That's the kind of candidate who 5 or 10 years from now will probably be going from convention to convention to convention, potentially running for the vice presidency or the presidency. Absolutely. I could
certainly hope so.
Now you're a recent transplant to Texas, right?
No, I've actually been in Texas for 9 years.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd read that you just moved to the Austin area.
I just moved to Austin. I was in Houston for 9 years before that.
Ah, okay. What's your thought on convention madness? And again, I say that, as someone who's an alternate to the LNC, I've seen firsthand the kind of efforts that all of them have put into this. This astonishing effort to try and get this, A, to the point where it was going to be an amazing convention, now B, to the point where we're going to have a convention. Being there on the ground in Austin gives you kind of a unique perspective. What's Austin really like right now? And in a perfect world, knowing that our bylaws prohibit an initial digital convention, what do you think should happen?
I think we take advantage of the fact that Governor Abbott has just decided to open Texas up 25% at a time. The facts on the ground here in Austin are that Austin is still one of our smaller big cities. Our metro area is apparently rating very highly on the social distancing scale. We've received good points there, and I think the situation might come back to some semblance of normal sooner here than in other parts of Texas. And I certainly can't speak for where the state convention is in McAllen, but in terms of Austin, I definitely think this would be, even if we can have a small in-person convention here, I think from a legal standpoint, we'd be okay because things are slowly starting to open back up. I know, I was looking forward a lot, Pat, to be honest with you, about receiving a lot of the friends I've made over the years from California, from Indiana, from Virginia, coming in and kind of getting to see Austin through my eyes. But I think in the absence of that, if there is to be an in-person convention, of course, it will make it easy on me. So I would say that I would love to stay for it to be still in Austin.
Yeah, no, I've been to 2 conventions. Have you been to a convention before?
I have not. Actually, March 14th was my first ever county convention for Harris County in Texas.
It's an amazing event. The breakout sessions are great. They do a fabulous job on that. There's the drama of the presidential and the vice presidential nomination and all the politics and the arguments and the wars that go on for that. That's great. There's the platform battles. I mean, that's sheer theater, right? That's like a rugby match with all black going up against Old Blue. I mean, that's just great stuff. But the most compelling part of it is, number one, the first time you walk onto the convention floor and you see a few thousand people there, and you realize that there are a lot of other people who think the way you do, and that you're not that, stranger in the night. You're not that lone wolf. You never again question. Not that you would, but you never again question the viability of your philosophy. You just don't. And the spirit, I always say it's like a rugby match because we beat the heck out of each other all day, and whatever it is, again, for whatever those three reasons, the platform, the bylaws, the candidacies. But at the end of the day, much like a rugby match, we help each other up. We dust ourselves off, maybe few bandages, a little bit of liniment, a little bit of, a little bit of massage, and then we go out and party with each other like no one's ever seen. And then the next morning we get up and do it again. And, I hope it for folks like you who are so instrumental to the movement, I hope it comes together at some level like that this summer, because it's in part a reward for all the work that folks like you do during the year. It just is. It changes your outlook on the movement forever. And there's a particularly compelling moment, and I often talk about this on the show, but there's a particularly compelling moment when Nick did it the first time I saw it was in 2016, my first convention. He had everybody stand up, and then he said, if this is your first convention, sit down. And second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth convention, more and more people sit down. At that point in time, the brunt of the audience was on their seats. And then all of a sudden, you're into your 10th and 11th convention. And you look, and there are the founders, if you will, the founding brothers and sisters of our movement, the folks who 30, 40 years ago were marching in parades alone, knocking on people's doors at county fairs, taking, they were considered the crazies then. How could you think like this? How, a movement that's grown to an election where millions of Americans voted for the Libertarian Party started out with those very people in that room literally alone or in small groups daring the duopoly, the establishment, the government, the omnipotent state, daring them to step down and looking at them right in the eye while they're doing it. So when you meet people like that, who have devoted their entire lives to what we believe in, it's an emotional moment.
I can only imagine that, and that's something I hope I'm looking forward to seeing. If not this year, then definitely in 2 years once this whole crisis blows over. But thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
No, thank you for calling. And listen, for folks, I appreciate you calling because this is, I think, the first call-in libertarian show in America, and getting folks to take a moment.
I think you've got some competitors now.
Okay, fair enough. But it's calling in and having a conversation like this on the phone. And I know sometimes I talk. I'm learning too because I'm passionate about this. But I'm grateful you took the time to do it, and I hope you'll encourage other people, whoever the host is, whoever the show is, because there's an exchange of information that just took place. That's wonderful. So.
Well, after this call, Pat, just so you know, I'm going to brag to all of my libertarian friends that I was on your show. Okay. So that's my claim to fame for today. Have a good evening.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Calling from Austin, Texas, another state we can check off the list. We've had people call from about 30 states so far from around the country. If you're just tuning in, we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage-born free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course the mothership at coalitionradio.us. It's sort of open lines tonight if you're listening. A variety of issues. Something that I had called, and you have to be of a certain age to have remembered, a god-awful book in high school English called Waiting for Godot. And I had renamed it Waiting for Amash. So there are more tea leaves to be read and smoke signals coming forward that says our Savior might be coming. If you're we're a child in the 60s and the 70s, you might remember music Godspell when Jesus enters the town square on Palm Sunday. I think the song is Hey Zana, Hosanna, Zana, Zana, Hey. Will it be that kind of moment where libertarians from near and wide flock and engage in a processional, lifting him up on their shoulders, saying, "Hallelujah"? This is why I don't do karaoke, by the way. Hallelujah. So, is that what they expect? I'm not sure. Is he going to change to a libertarian in Congress? Now, Congress just signaled that they're not coming back in a week or two. Who knows if Congress comes back at all? But if we had a sitting libertarian for the last 6 months or a year, I think we'd be talking about a very different picture. What does it say about the individuals who've been on this show this week and some who may yet join us, who spent months traveling across this country, months, to talk about themselves, to talk about the movement, to talk about the presidential race? At great personal expense, at great financial expense? What does it say to them? What does it say to them? Are all their efforts for naught because someone just decided that they're ready to assume the throne? What does that say about our movement? My requirements are, if anyone listen to this one, they'll lose their minds. My requirements are actually pretty straightforward for the nomination. I want someone who's a real libertarian. Yes, a real libertarian. Someone who's more libertarian than I am to run for the presidency, to be our nominee. I will always refer to that 30 minutes. If you were given 30 minutes on the Rachel Maddow show, what would you talk about? Would you talk about Hillary Clinton? Is that what you would do? What would you do? At what point do we as a political movement say that it's not okay to put up our seat for sale? I have yet to see him go on the national stage and declare himself a libertarian. I want to hear that first. I want to hear that speech. I want to understand where he stands relative to the party. Because yes, I am a big L libertarian. Yes, the party means something to me. It means a lot to me. It means one whole hell of a lot. We got to call her. So we set up the big L with the porcupine in the sky, and we said, We need a real libertarian to call in. Hi, you've reached the Coalition Radio. What's your name and where are you calling from? Well, we'll try that again.
Pat?
Yes. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi. This is Kim Ruff calling from beautiful Peoria, Arizona.
My prayers were answered. We put up the symbol in the sky, the spotlight up in the sky, and as if by magic, by pixie dust, by sheer inspiration.
Was it a Phoenix beacon?
Yes. And I can't do the whistle from Hunger Games, but I do that too if I could. All right. So, but I'll do the two fingers. Do I have it right? I'm not sure which.
Yes. You volunteer as tribute.
Oh, okay. I volunteer as tribute. The question is, will they have me? But what the hell is going on? What are we to make of this?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I have to, it's a little bit difficult because I am so angry. I'm so livid and irritated and frustrated and aggravated, and I'm trying to find a way to articulate it that isn't just this, verbal diarrhea of emotional expletives. But the long and short of it is that I know for a fact, not only did the Russ Phillips campaign, because I was the one who called, but also various members of the LNC have been trying to get a hold of him for the past 2 years to find out what his plan of action was, because he is very well liked and respected as one of the very few sitting Congress people who lean libertarian. And when we started out on our campaign, we just did not want to go toe-to-toe with him because of the fact that there is a huge contingent of people in the Libertarian Party who value what they perceive to be name recognition or previous office holding experience, regardless of record, or, the access presumably to a sizable war chest to be the criteria that's necessary for a candidate. It doesn't matter what their contribution is to the party. It doesn't matter what their contribution is to the philosophy, so long as they have a name that at least you can point to an article and say, see, they're a person. Or if you think at least they have the trappings of financing, then that is what people prize. So we knew that, and we had contacted to find out if he was planning on running, and they never called us back. And I know that he's been kind of jumping and dodging the LNC, members of the LNC, for a while, who've been trying to find out what his plan is. And it has been, for the past 2 years, this constant recurring rumor, will he or won't he? It's just an Amash watch 2020. And then finally, after it's become, he makes that big old, I'm declaring independence from political parties last year, which was, okay, that's cool. Not even remotely analogous to the Declaration of Independence and casting off the yoke of the British crown, but okay, you do you, boo. Then he plays pussyfoot this whole time. And just recently, there started to be more rumors again about him doing it. Supposedly, he bought a lifetime membership because you too, for $1,500, can tell people you're a libertarian. And now he's launching an exploratory committee. I mean, the damn convention is in less than 45 days. It's in a month and a week, not even.
Right.
And he's putting his toe in, feeling out the waters. Let's be honest. He could not get reelected in his district. And the reason why is because it's a very partisan state. They would not accept him or take him on again as an independent or a libertarian or anything else. It's a very challenging atmosphere in Michigan. So him declaring independence basically shot himself in the foot, knowing full well he probably would be redistricted out of a district to be able to run for anyway. But even so, he still made motions like he was going to run again. And I think it just didn't pan out. He spent all this time basically trying to, get Trump impeached on specious grounds. As libertarians, we agree there's myriad things you can take the man down with. Specifically, you could go after him for continuing unconstitutional wars, but we wouldn't want to do that.
No.
So instead, we're going to just say there's collusion, and now he shows up at the last minute. And what are we supposed to be grateful? Praise Jesus, Justin Amash is here.
The
It just feels like the Trump grudge match 2020.
Did you ever get
and we get to get used for it.
Did you ever get stuck reading Waiting for Godot in high school?
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. So I've reframed it, and I did this in an LNC meeting. I called it "Waiting for Amash," and you know,
Yes.
equally as meaningless. You know, waiting for Amash. I know I'm going to offend one person when I say this. Is like the tilapia of political campaigns. There's no calories. There's no nutritional value, and yet somehow we're going to feel filled up for an hour or so. I just
Right.
just
Well, the thing that's aggravating about it, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that he said he's a libertarian, but he's never been a libertarian up until just last week, if the rumors about him buying a lifetime membership hold water, it's the fact that anyone who's running for office on our ticket knows that it's a Sisyphean feat. You know, that it's incredibly difficult pushing that rock up the hill. But they recognize that there's a moral imperative to put your name out there and get this message out there, because until the rest of America understands that the only true way is to a world of freedom that honors and respects our natural rights to life, liberty, and property, it doesn't matter who's in office. Because we might get in office for a minute, but it's not going to last, because that's not the dominant political culture. So office, but that doesn't change the fact that you have to galvanize an entire base of activists and convince them to go and gather an extraordinary amount of signatures to get your name on the ballot in their state. And you're doing this at a time when there's a concern about public health. The other thing is that, you know, like, your most important resource in this movement are our activists. And you've done nothing in the past 2 years or ever, really, to galvanize and motivate our activists. And in fact, one of the things that really aggravated me while we were running for office is that there's a lot of really wonderful people that would have helped us on our campaign financially or volunteering or something, but they were holding out for Justin Amash. That's 2 years of work that could have been done that wasn't done because everyone was waiting for Justin Amash. And that's just, this is the insanity, Pat. Like, this is exactly why I'm at my wit's end. It's like, we do this every 4 years. Every 4 years. I mean, we are in a totally different ball game this year. And it's changed within a matter of 6 weeks. And not because of who entered late, but because of the climate. I mean, COVID wasn't even a thing up until the beginning of this year. And now this is our new, quote unquote, normal. And we have to adjust and pivot and deal with that and message accordingly. And I just don't see how some guy who spent the last year trying to get the president impeached because he wanted to grandstand on something that was erroneous. And P.S., unconstitutional, Amash. You call yourself a constitutional conservative. You should have known that what you were doing was wrong. But no. He's going to be the one to lead us to the promised land.
You know, and how?
I'm sorry, I'm so aggravated.
No. This is the kind of, we need to get this out of us, because let's be blunt. Betsy DeVos of the Amway family, if I have that correctly, remember Amway, of the Amway family, were one of the first major donors to defect. They were one of the underwriters, if you will. Let's reflect on that for a second. One of the significant underwriters of Justin Amash was Amway. So while you thought you were going out and buying incredibly effective, state-of-the-art laundry detergent at a reasonable price, while simultaneously perhaps taking part of the American dream by becoming part of a multi-level I'm sorry, did I say multi-level marketing scheme? Yes, I did. All right. You know, her being co-opted, if you will, by the Orange Cheeto, incredibly enough to be our education secretary or some such nonsense. That doesn't happen. Waiting for Amash stays waiting for Amash. And by the way, is it coincidence that the fact that the Congress just signaled that they're not coming back into session per se in person, which eliminates the need for him to stand up as a libertarian with an L on his name in perhaps a historical moment in our nation's history? to actually have a sitting libertarian in the United States Congress? Is that a coincidence too, that he was waiting for that so he doesn't have to take that step? If there was a value add to me, Kim, it's 6 months ago or 8 months ago or a year ago, the notion that we would have a member of the Libertarian Party. Yes, for this brief moment, I am putting party on a pedestal. All right, to have a libertarian sitting in the United States Congress, acting, if you will, on behalf of not just his delegation or his district, but the libertarian movement at large, an historic moment, again, lost.
Right. You're right. You're right. Like, if you actually, I mean, this is the thing that's so wholly illogical about it. I mean, it's like we said, there's a whole declaring independence. He made big old bones about, I'm declaring independence from political parties because all political parties are inherently corrupt or whatever, rationale he used to justify it. And that's fine. That's fine if that's what you believe. But how is it that less than a year later, you end up buying a lifetime membership to the Libertarian Party after just declaring your independence, and now you want to run on our ticket? I cannot help but feel, and I don't think I'm alone in this sentiment, that he recognizes how incredibly difficult it would be to run as an independent, and he's coming to take advantage of our existing resources, including our activists, because we've spent the past 45 years laying the infrastructure that we have and building the mechanism that we have. Like, rather than stand tall on his personal principle of casting off the yoke of political parties, he's now going to come and join a third party to run for president because we have what he wants. But where was he when we needed him?
Bueller.
Yeah.
Rohan was just on, and I suggested to him, when I get off the show, I'm going to try and see if I can dig up my old eBay account. As if does anyone go to eBay anymore? I was going to go to eBay account, and I was going to put up for sale the nomination for the presidency of these United States from the Libertarian Party. What do you think I can get for it? Do you think I can get more than $1,500 for it? I don't know.
Gosh. Well, shoot. If you don't have to go to any conventions or do anything, and you just allude to the fact that you might have money behind you, I think you can get it for a song.
Yeah. Hey, $2,000, as we say in Rhode Island, $2,000. Yeah, that's a ticket. We could buy some scratchies as a party. It's all about opportunity lost, because there is. You've just had a group of people literally give up 6 months of their lives, and I'm not a big fan of the word fair. But I will go with the word fair play. Regardless of whether or not they're your candidate or not, Vermin Supreme, Justin Hornberger, and I'm not going to list them all because I'll miss somebody, but they just have, night after night, appearing on podcast after show. A bunch of them have been on my show. Again, evenings lost with their family, flying to far-flung cities, going to conventions, and then, in some cases, going to 2 conventions in a weekend. All of that, most of these people having committed years to the effort, years of their lives. You and I have had this conversation live before, and you are a repeat offender on this show, by the way, just for the record. But again,
you're gonna top fan badge.
I was just talking about with Ron You've been to conventions, and there's that moment at a convention when everyone is asked to stand up, and I'll just repeat it if you're just for people tuning in or who might fast forward through the replay of the show, which will be available on podcast and YouTube format. There's that moment in a convention when everyone stands up, and then if this is your first convention, sit down. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. All of a sudden, when you get to 10 conventions, the crowd starts getting pretty sparse. And within a couple of minutes, you're left watching at, gawking at, admiring, thinking about, contemplating, philosophizing about the people who founded this movement. The D. Frank Robinsons of the world who founded this movement. All right? And you look to them, and what I dreamed of this election being was essentially a victory tour for them. That all those years spent, and again, I'll describe it again. All those years spent at county fairs, marching with 2 or 3 of their libertarian buddies in a parade, being made sport of, quite frankly, being the catcalls, the smirks, the condescension, because, we're Republicans. We're the party of the United States Constitution. We're the party of small business and fiscal responsibility. Yeah, okay, how about that? All right. Or the Democrats. We're the party of social justice. We don't believe in wars. Okay, sure. And so after a lifetime of effort, these are the heroes of our party, brothers and sisters that we've had the opportunity to stand with for a few years, who've been out there for their entire lives. And what this should have been and should remain is a victory tour for them. The notion that through the culmination of their hard work and what they've inspired in other people like you and me, it represents a call to liberty, a call to freedom, a call to personal ownership, a call to self-reliance in a country crippled by the absence of every one of those. And we would look to them for inspiration and give them their moment. When finally, after 12 years in the desert, someone stood up, elected by us, by our representatives, who represented what we thought was the best answer to what our nation faces, the crisis, the chaos, and the spiritual abandonment. That's what this represented to me. I don't know, maybe I have high standards. Yeah, I do. But to again...
I think...
Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think a lot of it, coming from the perspective of being an activist well before I ever was a candidate, it's because we invest so much of ourselves in it. There's so much blood, sweat, and tears. I've been active and involved in the party at some level or another since 2009. So that's 11 years. You're talking all that time spent campaigning or advocating or gathering signatures or getting voted registered or just jawing with people in order to impress upon them where we stand and why we believe what we do. We are, for lack of a better equivalent, we are tantamount to, missionaries in some respects, because we're basically trying to spread the gospel of liberty. And so there's so much that we put in suspended animation, vacations we don't take, nice things we don't buy, because all that time, energy, and resources are being spent on doing what we believe is right. Because, anybody who buys into this and believes it with their whole person recognizes that it is a matter of morality and a matter of ethics, and that we as human beings are capable of extraordinary things when we're given the freedom to explore our world and who we are and our unlimited potential. So we know that, and we believe it with every fiber of our being. And when we elect candidates, when we select candidates or nominate them, we're looking for somebody who encapsulates that entire thing that means so much to us, is able to articulate it, is a representative of it, emulates it in their own character and conduct. Because it's so good. Who we are, what we believe, it's good, it's pure, it's capital T truth. And when we have somebody who doesn't even have the stones to cast off the label of R and go with L while they're a city congressperson, always says, oh, well, I'm libertarian leaning. It makes it sound like sometimes, sometimes on the weekend I indulge in a beer. That's not what I'm looking for. Either you're in or you're out. I want somebody who lives, breathes, and dies liberty to represent us, not someone who is putting his toe in. And for God's sakes, an exploratory committee? Are you serious? If you're coming in at the 11th hour, you better be all the way in. That's just, what are you exploring? Your options, the potential, the general sentiment? Well, I'll tell you, if I'm representative of the party, we're not happy about it. But I'm not representative of the party. I'm sure there are some folks who are over the moon. They've been waiting so very long for the second coming of Justin Amash.
Sam Goldstein on Facebook. Sorry, Charlie. Way too late for my support. That's coming from Sam Goldstein. Sam Goldstein. As pragmatic as they come.
Well, that's surprising.
as someone,
Yeah.
Sam and I have tortured each other now for about a year that we've gotten to know each other. The more we've gotten to know each other, the more we've tortured each other. I pointed out to him last week that I'd given him 4 likes and loves in the space of 2 weeks, and I'd almost mentioned the word I admire, but I couldn't possibly do that. I caught myself midstream. He laughed, we laughed. We've got this sort of shtick going on. Now I have to say, Sam, I'm typing it right now on the Facebook, yes, I admire you.
Oh, Justin Amash, you really brought this party together.
Well, again, right now I got the feeling, and I don't know who's playing Lucy. I'll just kind of leave that whole conversation out there. But right now, Lucy is in the process of pulling away the football again from all the folks. And again, Dan Berman, another example. Well, Joe Jorgensen, another example. Vermin, Jacob, all these folks coming from, yes, different groups support them. Ultimately, though, I don't look at any one of them and say, I don't have any question whatsoever if they're libertarian or not. I simply have none. And to me, then it's just simply a question.
Yeah,
can you question any of them on their libertarianism?
No. I mean, even Lincoln Chafee, who obviously took a stance on some issues that I disagree with. I don't feel that he's a totally hard-boiled libertarian quite yet, but I think that his intentions were good and that he's in the right place. And it's just a matter of him being young in the process and let's gently guide him. Even him, I thought, was a libertarian. It was just that, he's campaigning for president on a very dismal record that would be difficult to argue, and that's why it wasn't the best time for him. But yeah, that's definitely something I've said about all the candidates and why it was so hard to come to a point where I wanted to endorse anyone, because there were very few that I couldn't be comfortable and proud to stand behind should they have gotten a nomination.
Right.
There really just wasn't anyone where I'd be like, I don't know. So, but this thing with Amash, I'm just like, even if he is the closest thing to a bona fide libertarian in the federal legislature, he's still wonky on some critical things, including bodily autonomy and choice.
Right.
And I can't. And especially showing up late, like I have zero interest now.
It's interesting. By the way, first of all, for the record, you're not drinking hot liquids, are you?
No.
Okay. You're firmly seated in a comfortable, safe position? And,
yes, I am.
And you have not felt at all or had any contact with Hillary Clinton in the last 24 hours?
No,
okay.
Definitely
right.
Never, actually.
One of the names being floated as a vice presidential candidate is Mark Sanford.
Mark Sanford?
Mark Sanford. The gay basher.
Isn't he the guy who went hiking, quote unquote, in Argentina, and then it turned out he just had an Argentinian girlfriend or something?
Yep, you.
Or am I conflating
ding,
him?
Ding, 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 ding. You win the Libertarian Prize
right.
at Libertarian Squares. Yes, because remember, at the Libertarian Party, there's always losers. So you have a prize to take home. I'm not sure what that is yet. It's a case of Yacht Club soda. All right. So, yes, that's one of the things being floated. For the love of God, a guy who has clearly got a challenging record, not only with his choice of enamoradas, but also the man has exhibited a great deal of hostility in the past. Now, remember, all these folks have records. See, this is the beauty of this. We're not engaging in ad hominem attacks. We're not projecting. We're not taking them any place they haven't taken themselves. All of these people have long-term political records. And Mark Sanford has, and I'm probably sure he'll try to whitewash it, but has been an avowed homophobe. He may not be Mike Pence level homophobe. That's just that's beyond. That's somewhere out between the moon and stars. All right, but he's that's what we're talking about here. On a very basic level, let's look at a declared vice presidential candidate. We've got two. And possibly a third in the wings. We've got Larry Sharpe, Spike Cohen, or Mark Sanford. Libertarian Nation.
We've also got Craig Bowden.
Okay, yep. Who are you?
Yeah, Craig Bowden's
Yeah. Who are you going to pick?
Oh, I'm all about Spike. Spike. Oh, Spike is one of those people who not only is he just an exceptional communicator and a great human being. I mean, he's just a fantastic person. Like, there's just not enough words to describe how much I value and appreciate Spike. But not only is he all those things in terms of word and deed, but he also has made a concerted effort up until COVID became problematic to go and engage people completely outside of the echo chamber or bubble of libertarianism. Furman and him were going to conventions, yes, but they were also going to colleges. They, even during COVID, they actually had contacted, I want to say it was Emerson College, and they spoke with the school there. They actually had a huge gathering of people who all Skyped in just to hear what they had to say. And they've been continually pounding the pavement, both literally and metaphorically, by capitalizing on social media and utilizing the internet and just making all this incredible. They are truly out there spreading the gospel. They're getting the message out. They're engaging with people who otherwise would have no way of hearing about us or knowing about us or what we believe.
Right.
And for that and many other reasons, I think Spike is amazing and would be hands down the best VP pick.
My vision of an Amash campaign.
Oh, and he's not a homophobe.
Right.
And Spike's not a homophobe. That's
right.
Another win in his column.
There you go. Let's get crazy. I have this vision of an Amash campaign being, if Bill Weld, there I go, I mentioned he who must not be named. Bill Weld was an extension of the Hillary campaign. I have this mental image of Justin Amash, his campaign appearances boiling essentially down to, ready for this? Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. Now, I don't need Justin Amash to tell me that Trump sucks. I just don't. I'm okay with that. We call him Cheeto Jesus here. And the Cheeto
right
is at this point, between the Nobel Peace Prize and doing Lysol, shooting up Lysol, I think quite frankly the guy's finished. We don't. It is not the role of the Libertarian Party to either warn against, discuss, or even mention the name Donald Trump. That's simply not our job.
Right. No, you're right. That's free advertising we're doing. We spend too much time basically trying to punch at people and not punch at ideas or policy.
Right.
If your entire argument for what makes you the best candidate is that you're not as bad as that guy, you don't have an argument. That's not good enough. I don't care if you're not Donald Trump. I want to know where you diverge on policy and platform. How would you handle a public health crisis like this? How would you handle these foreign affairs issues? What would you do about our relationship with China? That's what I want to know. And I want to see how your policies and platforms manifest in respecting the rights of each individual. That's it. Not, I'm not as bad as that guy. Elect me.
Yeah, no, and so again, the conversation you and I had on the air before, so I'll give it the Reader's Digest treatment. The 30 minutes or so that Bill Weld had on the Rachel Maddow show was a generational opportunity to present to people who, quite frankly, loathe us, who mischaracterize us, who lie about us, an opportunity to discuss at length the libertarian philosophy. Now, I wasn't expecting a single member of the Rachel Maddow audience to join us. But to use the Larry Sharpe way to plant a seed, to overcome generalizations or cliches about us, to point out that we oppose crony corporatism with every inch of our DNA, every bit of our world, and to puncture that illusion of awe so that we no longer represented as evil corporatists when nothing could be further from the truth. The notion that we oppose the war on drugs because we care about people and we look for people who are looking to add recovery to their life, to find humane ways not to be caged because of their involvement with narcotics, to actually have a conversation about our attitude toward borders, which is nuanced amongst many libertarians, but we all agree that no one should be warehoused or put into a box because of their decision to move across some line that someone had drawn a century ago, which means nothing in a world of humanity. To have the opportunity to discuss those issues and to look that opportunity squarely in the eye and use it for personal self-aggrandizement and for personal legacy building, to me, was the biggest obscenity of that campaign.
Yeah.
And the notion that we might have some of those opportunities again, simply because, again, you're juxtaposing two terrible candidates. I mean, here we are again. In 2020, the selection of choices for Americans for the presidency of the United States in arguably the single largest crisis in American history are terrible. Joe Biden is not some kindly old geezer. You know, he is one of the architects of the war on drugs. He's one of the architects of our failed foreign policy. He's one of the architects of our endless foreign police actions. He represents everything wrong in a way that's unparalleled. He is actually, on a fundamental level, more evil than Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is a fool. All right? A fool's fool. And everyone's laughing except us. Biden is fundamentally evil.
Yeah.
Right. So again, the opportunity presents itself, Kim Ruff. We will get traction simply because we're not them. And what will we do with it? What should we do with it, Kim Ruff?
I think that we should absolutely capitalize on any positive attention and any membership that we get in order to continue to spread that message out. With liberty, it always starts with you. You know, its first step is acknowledging that no one has the right to rule you. So self-ownership. The next step is personal responsibility. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And then the third step is community relationships. Building that network with the people in your world, in your immediate sphere of influence, and making it a positive bulwark against tyranny. And you do that by educating your neighbors and building those relationships and reaching out to them in times of crisis so they know to count on you instead of looking to government to fix what's failing us. Because what's failing us is always government, always.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we should do with it. And that's the whole point and purpose, is we're trying to create a socio-political sea change where people stop looking to government to fix things, because they never fix anything. All they do is swing the pendulum radically in one extreme to the other. And when it swings, it knocks the rest of us down. So that's what we should do with it. And that's why it's absolutely critical that we eschew all those trappings of success or political prowess or name recognition or whatever else we think is important. And we get somebody who is able to articulate our message and stands for it in both who they are and what they do. And they have a plan. And the plan being, how do we get government out of the way in the way that we can reasonably in the roles that we seek? That is not that hard. But this is also politics, and politics brings interesting characters with their own needs, wants, and desires. And sometimes they might be a wolf in sheep's clothing, using whatever vehicle that they can get to in order to get acclaim or get fame or get wealth. I don't know how they would do it if they did it like we did, but, you know, there is that possibility. And sometimes, and I can't help but wonder this myself, and I know this is a little tinfoil hat, but sometimes I wonder if some of these duds that we get is because we're being played. You know, like it's these people who come over from other parties, and I'm not talking about the transplants from Republicans or Democrats, the individuals. I'm talking about actual politicians. Sometimes I just wonder, like, is this where they put your not so good Republicans or not so good Democrats out to pasture and then say, hey, you can run for office there? Because screw the Libertarian Party. America's not ready for freedom, even though that's the whole foundation upon which we were built. It just, it makes you wonder.
I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. It's if there's any advantage to having 4 or 5 weeks as opposed to what happened in 2016 with Mr. Weld, we do have the opportunity to coalesce as a party and have that not so quiet conversation with him. I think he needs at this point, as opposed to that Palm Sunday moment. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the movie musical Godspell, where this entire choreographed dance came when Jesus came on Palm Sunday into the village square. I believe that's what they think we're going to do. Thank God he finally has decided to smile upon us. He's gazed in our direction. Dude's got to come up with some pretty serious creds and some pretty serious promises and some pretty serious resources to even be considered at this point. And
unless he's going to give every single American citizen a pony, I'm out.
there you go.
We already have that. What do you got? Nothing? Okay, then.
You got no pony. You got no toothbrushes. You got no. God, dude. I mean, really?
What's your plan with the zombie power? Are you going to harness it and provide us with sustainable, renewable energy sources, or are we going to continue to use fossil fuel? What's the plan, Amash? I want to know.
Oh, my.
These are tough questions. But if he wants to be president of America, he needs to be able to answer these. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do about the zombies?
Really getting into it. Do you think any of them ever do? This is coming from us. I can't imagine what the ninjas over at the Mises group are doing right now. I think they're sacrificing, what are those dolls you put pins into? I think that's what, he has no idea what he's getting himself into. I can't imagine.
A voodoo doll?
Yeah. He, again, to your earliest point tonight, he may have accomplished in his own way that which was heretofore thought impossible. If he can bring Sam from Indiana and Pat from Rhode Island to the point where we're giving each other high fives, holy cow.
That's true.
Finally, we found a way to unify the party. And I know I know those folks who believe in a pragmatic course of action because of the implications of ballot access. Listen, do we have a party left? If we can at some point find a way to promote our own philosophies, screw ballot access.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, it's one comes before the other, which is, in order to start a movement, you have to have some sort of central idea that guides you, which is our platform, our statement of principles, and then our platform is just an expansion of that concept in separate issues. That's the very foundation of who we are. Everything else is you building the mechanism for political advocacy. But that's secondary. If you don't have your foundation, and you don't have candidates who honor your foundation, then it's wholly irrelevant what mechanism you have, because you're driving the wrong people there. Like, the whole point of us is to do what they say, which is speak to the remnant. You want to talk to the person. Your message needs to go to that person who already knows something's wrong. They already know that what we have isn't right, how it's been done isn't working, and that it's time to try something new. Or, even more radically, try something that we once tried before but forgot our way. And those are the people that you're touching and you're waking up. And those are going to be tomorrow's greatest freedom fighters. It's not about convincing people who are entrenched Democrats or entrenched Republicans or entrenched Greens that they need to flip. It's about all those other people that are politically homeless, that don't have a voice or a representative that captures who they are, because nobody has spoken the language that resonated with them. We're singing the song of our people, and we're calling them home. So get the lyrics right,
You know, there's so much hope on the horizon. For years, people have been talking about creating a bench. So, to his eternal credit, Dan Fishman came up with this idea to have a show once a week, and he was nice enough to ask me to be involved. And so on every Friday night now, and I was discussing it with Rohan, at 8 o'clock, please listen on the LPTV Facebook page. We do a show called An Hour with the Candidates. And the focus exclusively is what's called down ballot candidates. And we've had candidates for the town council, state rep. We've had a governor or so. We've had one congressman. But largely the focus is based on folks running for board of eds and school boards and town councils and mayoralties. And we've done it for 3 weeks in a row now, Kim. And the 6 folks that we've had been on have been superstars. Absolute superstars. And the other reason we do it is to give libertarian candidates an opportunity to spend a little bit of time on video, sometimes for the first time, so they just kind of get their feet wet, get an idea on how to message and practice, quite frankly, in front of a friendly audience and a host who's, quite frankly, happy to have them there. And we don't no gotchas, but most importantly, we give them the opportunity in a half-hour segment to frame the issues that are important to folks local to them in their, whether it be their district, their town council, the town that they're mayor of, to take and discuss those issues and discuss them through a prism, if you will, or the lens of a libertarian. And the first six folks we've had have been superstars. They take to the video effort like water, ducks in water. They are keenly involved in their communities. They're messaging properly. Now they just need a little practice and some support. And as I mentioned to Ron, those folks that we're having on the shows right now, and we're going to do this right up through the campaign, and I'm looking for folks to join us. If I could get every single libertarian candidate in America that's somehow on the airwaves so they can just take advantage of the opportunity, get their feet wet a little bit, practice, reach out to other libertarians, while simultaneously giving folks the idea that if you're a libertarian in New Hampshire or Massachusetts or South Carolina, the man or woman who's running in North Dakota is as important as the person running for state rep in your state. If we can accomplish little bits of all of that, then we're actually building that bench. And the people on these who's going to be on the show this year, I'm convinced 10 or 15 years from now, they're going to wheel me in and they're going to say, "Hey, remember me when I was on your show?" And I'm going to say, "Yeah, I'm running for president now." So we're doing that, Kim.
Right.
Apollo Pezel and his effort up in the north central part of the country, in Wyoming, the Frontier Project, we're doing that. We are doing the right things as long as we don't blow it on those few times when we get an opportunity to play in the national sandbox. So how can a philosophy that's doing so well at a certain level just blow it? In the New York Mets, Casey Stengel had a great line. "We are snatching defeat from the hands of victory." I mean,
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that because I think we sometimes convince ourselves that this is the only election that matters, which is erroneous. Even though most of Americans who are eligible to vote typically turn out for federal races, but less so for, say, their city council, the ones that are truly most critical and that we as libertarians recognize because of the fact that we are such big proponents for bringing government back down to a local individual level, would be the local races, your city council race, your board of education race. Those are the ones that have the most direct and meaningful impact on each and every person's life. So we're very good about getting staunch libertarians to run for office at the local or state level. But at the federal level, I think we convince ourselves that, well, maybe, just maybe, that thing that we tried before, several times it didn't work, maybe this time it'll work. Because we think that somehow this will be the one time that all of America is watching. And that's not true. That's not necessarily true. You can get people to pay attention to you and watch you and listen to what we have to say any other day of the week. This is a federal race. This is another opportunity for us to highlight what we believe and use this platform to get that message out there But we're not going to capture the brass ring. And if you think we are, because we got Justin Amash, you P.S. My parents are Reagan Republicans, and they have no idea who he is. And I ran for president on the Libertarian Party ticket. So you'd think if anybody was slightly more close to that, it would be my parents. And they don't even know who he is. So they think, we get somebody with a little bit of name recognition or the illusion of some backing, financial backing, this time we'll capture the brass ring. Forget that.
This time
it's about
will be
education.
different.
It's about outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's like, it makes me think of a thing from Arrested Development, and forgive me for this. There's a scene in which the analrapist, which is an analyst therapist, Tobias Funke, tells his wife, she suggests to him having an open relationship. And he says, well, in my experience as a therapist, I've never seen a couple typically thinks this is a good idea to open up the relationship, but it never works out, and it usually ends up destroying the relationship. And then he takes a pause and says, but maybe for you and me, it'll be different. It's the same thing. Like if you've seen time after time after time that some sort of formula isn't going to work, why do you keep doing it? Try something different. I mean, shoot. At this point, I really honestly think that our best bet as far as using it for education, using it for outreach, having the ability to garner that level of attention, and ensure that they capture enough disaffected voters to get that 5% to help ensure ballot access for several states is the Supreme Cohen ticket. They have the mechanism. They have the vehicle. They've Berman spent 30 years building it, but the campaign itself has spent the past 3 years building it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do it. Let's get them, and then you can build off of that. And I don't think, and I know a lot of people say with the Supreme Cohen thing where they're like, nobody's going to know it's a joke. Are you kidding me? The guy talks about giving everybody a free pony and wears a boot on his head. They understand that there's levity and they understand he's not serious in what he's saying. But they also, at the same time, once he gets that quote unquote boot in the door, he articulates flawlessly what we believe. He says exactly what a libertarian is. And he does it with empathy, and kindness, and humor, like a person should talk to another human being.
I had Vermin on my interview show this past week. And folks, by the way, if you're just joining us, we're the Coalition, coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio. We're also broadcasting this on Periscope and YouTube. And by the way, I want to thank the wise ass who decided to share this video into the Amash for President 2020 group. So I think Kim, thanks to my buddy, and I know who did it. Thanks to my buddy Eddie Future, you and I had with the Amash campaign, just went down the turlet. Because it's now sitting in there, and interestingly enough, and I think you'll find the humor in this. It says a lot about Facebook. 3 people in the Amash for President group have liked it.
Oh.
Folks, can I suggest at this moment in time a brief editorial? If you're going to like something, maybe you should read it or listen to it first. Just saying.
Maybe they did. Maybe they did, Pat, and maybe they were like, you know what? That's a really good point.
So I think I just
one can dream, right?
Yeah, I just got a laughy face out of it. Maybe that'll show up. I'm not sure, but I had Vermin on the show last week, and by the way, Kim, I'm the guy who 2 weeks before the apocalypse decided to expand the studio so that we could be on the air more. Expand my business like right into the heart of it. But I had Vermin on.
Well, now you have a bunker. You have a bunker that you can broadcast from.
Right, we are in the bunker. I want you to know, Dick Cheney and Spiro Agnew are my 2 spirit animals. They're here with me, and we're ready to go at any time. Particularly my boy Spiro. But so we've had, and by the way, the invitation is open. If people hear this and they're running for the presidency, I'd love to have you on. We'll spend an hour or so. In my case, sometimes an hour, as you know, can be an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. But I had Vermin on, and he and I had met once or twice, and we've spoken, and cordial. But rather than go down the normal route, which is, I think, to talk about, if is he libertarian enough, all that. I listened to Vermin opine for about an hour, if you will, on how he became Vermin Supreme and the type of, I don't think they would have called it anarchy at the time, but the essentially how he morphed, if you will, from someone who is engaged in communal living because of the sheer rebelliousness of it all, to someone who's become a very principled political activist. And to me, I was just sit back and listened, and let him go on. To me, it was a fascinating exercise because he understands the dynamics of political movements. He understands the interrelationships that are necessary. He understands outreach. He understands how to mitigate some of the more extreme examples or behavior that can occur in a movement like that. I got to tell you, I just, like so many of the candidates, I am convinced that we have the very best, the most diverse, yet very most libertarian offerings of candidates in the history of this party right now. We've got damn fine libertarians running. Last night, I had Jacob Hornberger on, and to me, I've always believed that incrementalism is the devil. You either go big or you go home. You either go for your objective or you just figure out something else to do. I'm not interested in half measures anymore. So I asked him what his reaction to that was, and he thought about something. We moved on a little bit, and then he came back to it. And I do a terrible job of essentially reproducing what these folks said. I would ask you to go shoot forward through the tape and listen to him. But he asked me, he goes, Pat, if you were in the 19th century and someone said, listen, I know you want to make slavery illegal, but how about we phase that in over 10 years? And we gradually give folks the right as slaves to get their education. And maybe I'm morphing off, I'm taking his words and running with them. But the implication was, how about we let's sunset the law after 5 years and have a discussion about it? No. Damn it, no.
Right. Well, that's actually, it's funny that you say that because this is actually essentially what the Constitution did with respect to the slave trade. Like when they wrote the Constitution, they were all rather torn on the whole concept of the slave trade. So they essentially agreed that in 30 years hence, 1808, they would end it. So they're like, we have a plan. It's just not while I'm alive.
Right. So to hell with that.
Yeah. To your point, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because the reality is that all these bad laws, it's not just a matter of, okay, I went over the speed limit. I got fined $500, which is a nuisance and sometimes a huge burden. We're talking about people who are serving time currently in prison for, producing or possessing or using narcotics that do nothing but harm themselves. They're not harming anybody else, but they're being penalized. We put them in a cage for that, and their lives are in the balance. You have people who have been convicted of crimes that they didn't necessarily commit on the most specious of grounds and the flimsiest of evidence because we've forgotten what the very concept of justice is. And they're possibly on death row. Like, there are people, when we are part of the war machine and we send our boys and girls overseas to fight in some sandbox in another foreign country, their lives are in the balance. Stuff like that can't wait. You can't tiptoe your way to the finish line. Either you end the suffering or you don't. There's no halfway.
And why commit all this effort to half measures? When I finally get too old to do this, which is probably about 5 years ago, I want to call my friend Tom Mann and say, Tom, thank God we didn't force the issue. Thank God. I remember that weekend you and I spent in Mexico. Listen, I'm glad we soft pedaled that whole, illegal alien thing. I thank God we didn't fight for open borders. Well, it said no one ever.
Right.
I'm perfectly happy to go down in flames. I'm perfectly content to force the issue to whatever degree I have to, and if it doesn't work, I know to co-opt one of the worst sports cliches. I know I left it all out on the field. That's what I'm looking to do.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work,
yeah,
I will take solace not in that I tried but that I literally just blew it all out. And there's a lot of people in the movement who are willing to do that. They'll, give them the opportunity, give them somebody they can rally behind. If I can draw a movie analogy, because I know you like movies. Right now, it feels like that cathartic moment in one of America's great film noirs, where after 2 hours or so of character development, and this was a movie shot as in sort of a cinema verite style, going back to really the late 70s, during, I think, which is one of the greatest moments in American film history. And of course, I'm talking about the era otherwise known as the Saturday Night Live movement. And there's a moment in the movie Animal House, which may seem to people like just a cheap comedy. There is a moment when one of the more well-developed characters, and of course I'm talking about Bluto, says to a willing crowd willing to take to the streets, he exits from the room yelling, "Remember when the Germans attacked Pearl Harbor?" That's what's going on right now with Justin Amash. Remember when the Germans attacked Pearl Harbor. Are you with me?
Don't interrupt him. He's on a roll.
So that's how I feel.
Should we tell him? Nah.
I see you've watched the movie.
Too.
I saw that movie 3 weeks before I went to college.
I was sort of hoping that you were going to say the quotable quote was "Fat, dumb, and stupid is no way to go through life."
Fat, dumb, and stupid. Yep. 0.0. Yeah. Pre-med, pre-law.
Lord.
What's the difference? You can't do that to our pledges. Only we can do that to our pledges. Again.
I guess.
What am I?
Well,
a zit. Yes. I
guess this is another thing we can be thankful for Justin Amash. Not only did he bring you and Sam together, but he allowed us to reminisce on a very awesome movie that we both love.
Well,
so thanks, Justin Amash, for that.
Thanks, buddy. Yikes. I guess while I got you on the phone, just unrelated issue, but I got to ask you this, and we know personally, the folks involved in the Convention Oversight Committee. We know that from Aaron to Daniel Hayes and everybody in between, just the work that they're doing. And I want people to, if they hear this or they're listening now, I want people to not only understand the level of work they're doing, but the amount of external stresses in everyone's lives. It's easy to forget when you look at super activists like Erin Adams, because in a certain way she makes it look easy. She does. Mm-hmm. And so the type of work they're doing in the conditions under which they're doing it, both from a decision perspective as well as the stresses associated with it. But what are your thoughts about the convention?
Well, goodness, I feel actually incredibly bad for both the LNC and the Convention Oversight Committee given everything going on, because they spent years putting this together, and now all their best laid plans are coming undone. I think the other thing that's rather crummy about this late announcement of Justin Amash is that on the 2nd, the LNC and the COC are going to get together and kind of see if they can come up with a game plan on how they're going to handle the convention, because it's looking like it's possible we might not be able to meet in person. They just recently had that snafu where, in discussing it with the Marriott accidentally, but I think they put it back up, the block of rooms that had been slated for our delegates had gotten deleted from the system. So I know they're going to have to work on that, and there's a couple of options they're exploring, and I am concerned. If I were the LNC, I would urge them to look at any other way they could do it to ensure as much participation by the delegate base without creating a public health issue, and not go with the option where the LNC decides, because that is, depending on what they pick, that could be something that could be perceived very negatively by a lot of the activists that look to them for leadership. And I don't want them, even if they did it in good faith, I don't want them to take that level of heat.
Yeah,
So,
you don't want an asterisk next to it, like it was a 162 game season as opposed to a 154. You just don't. It's
right.
And I think we owe all the candidates that. We owe all the candidates a legitimate way of nominating these folks, because obviously most of them are going to lose, and most of them will have spent months, like I mentioned, on the road. They'll have spent lots of their families, their friends' money to do so, and it's just in the cards. There's going to be 10 or 11 folks who worked their asses off and lost, and
right.
So we owe them in advance an honest attempt to nominate the will of the convention, regardless of how that convention meets. We just owe them. So
we do. You're right. I mean, that is above all really how we're going to illustrate fair play. Anyone can throw their hat in the ring. Anyone can come in at the 11th hour. They could roll up curbside the day of and say, I'm going to run. But ultimately, the delegates will make that decision. And if we want to engage in fair play and want to be equitable and ensure that the candidates that ran that won't get the nomination still stick around and don't feel like they got burned, then we have to do it in a way that ensures the most amount of participation, that's why I personally think that doing the get together with just a couple of people to amend the bylaws to permit electronic voting and then going that route would be the best way of doing it. It ensures the greatest amount of participation and voices, and it'll prevent any sort of possible shenanigans and or accusations of impropriety, even where there may be none.
No, I agree with you 100%. Absolutely. It's again, each in their own ways over the past 5-6+ months of campaigning has made their own effort successfully to spread the word. Every time we had 8 or 10 people at a convention, local folks just, sometimes through osmosis, they were out there, being apostles, being evangelists for us. So, it's they need to be respected at that level. And
yeah, most definitely.
So,
I mean, it's like we were talking about earlier. There's very few candidates that are currently running where we can look at and be like, no, they're not a libertarian.
Yeah.
Different stripes, different focuses, but all definitely libertarians and all definitely extraordinary assets to our movement.
Right, and we need to make sure that those folks continue to be extraordinary assets to our movement.
Yeah.
I don't want a Libertarian Party without Vermin Supreme. I just don't. If he doesn't get the nomination,
there's no party in Libertarian Party without Vermin there.
Right, 100%. I want him to be part of the permanent landscape, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will too serve to bring the caucuses closer together. I personally can't think of anybody who's prominent in the movement from any one of the groups that I don't admire, appreciate their work ethic. I might not always agree with them, but I really want us to start promoting all of us. Call me a Pollyanna.
Yeah.
Call me overly optimistic. I know there's competition there, and competition sometimes doesn't always bring out the best in people. But I can't think of any principles in the movement who I don't have a great deal of admiration and respect for. I like them all. I wish there was a little bit more liking them all and kind of understanding that sometimes the competition heat is just part of the political game. But when the game's done, like I said, like a rugby match, we help each other up and go out and have a beer together. I crave that for this party.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, what do you think of talk radio? Are you you just spent an hour with me on talk radio? What we're trying.
Why I'm talking to you?
Well, what I'm trying to do here is I'm a talk radio junkie. That should probably be obvious. And anyone who lives in an urban area where there's political talk radio needs to use that as a tool, and it's a free tool usually to evangel and to be an evangelist for the libertarian movement. It's a free tool, but I'm a huge believer that people talking to each other as opposed to in chat rooms where you lose the verbal cues and you don't hear the tone of voice. I just, what I'm trying to do here is get people to call in. It's been mildly successful. Some nights are very quiet. Other nights we've had calls. Get people away from the keyboards to call in, and maybe in a few minutes, maybe it's a longer conversation like this, but to weigh in. I think it's empowering for people to give voice to what they believe in. So that's what we're trying to do here. So I
think it's awesome. I'm glad that you're doing that and you're providing that resource for the movement. And I will. The next time I call, I'll be like, long-time listener, fourth-time caller.
Well, you'll see the notifications on the Facebook. One of the things we're trying to do is get people to listen at coalitionradionetwork.com, because I'll put on my tinfoil hat. I worry, particularly in the age of COVID, about the future of social media when it comes to organizations like the or approaches like the Liberty Movement, I should say, and organizations like the Libertarian Party. I worry that there'll be a lot of resources that will get suddenly shut down. Some of them reasonable ones. I don't think on any of my shows I advocate for anything other than civility and peaceful resolution. But because it's a libertarian and the word liberty is in there, I could get shut down. I think we need to, as a movement, develop social media resources outside of some of the big players right now. So, listen,
I agree.
I'm grateful for you for weighing in and spending so much time with us tonight.
Oh my gosh, Pat, are you kidding? It was my pleasure.
Just don't, again, there will be nights where we will put up the if you're whiling through the screens and you see me doing the volunteer thing, then I need you. All right, I need you. We will put up your symbol in the sky, and we need you. Don't go. Don't leave us.
Oh gosh. Put it up and I'll be there.
Again, Kim Ruff, activist par excellence of the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement, evoking relatively short. And by the way, like I said, you are now live and in color in the Amash 2020 Facebook room. So I'm thinking at least a couple of folks. I who I feel badly for? The congressional staffer or his staffer tomorrow that has to listen to this and document it for an hour. Thanks, Daryl. That's my buddy. He's my buddy.
All I'm going to say to him is maybe y'all should have thought this through a little better.
Yep. In fact, do that if you'll give a last parting message to the Amash campaign. What are your thoughts if they listen to this? And like I said, some sorry college intern will have to listen to me tomorrow. What are your thoughts? If you could speak directly to Justin Amash right now, if he was calling you on the phone while we were having this conversation, what would you say?
Oh boy. How did you get my number?
He's a congressman, man.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. You think he voted against it?
I'm like, damn.
It
doesn't mean he doesn't have access to it.
Right, exactly. Two words, metadata.
True.
All right. He's got your metadata down cold.
Well, I think it's kind of the chief complaint that we have with any political representative, particularly those that are very divorced from the experience of their constituency. If you want to convince your constituency, which in the case of seeking the nomination are the delegates, that you're the man for the job or the woman or whatever for the job, you want to convince them, you need to know a little bit about them. And that means you need to spend time with them and talk to them and find out what's important to them and where you guys are going to diverge. And if there's a happy, healthy middle ground you can achieve. Like that, this is probably why it's so galling to a lot of us, is that we've been in the trenches. We've been the boots on the ground this whole time. And there were plenty of opportunities and many overtures made to encourage him to come over, not necessarily as a presidential candidate, but as an individual that describes himself as a libertarian. He has been invited to talk to us and invited to spend time with us and get to know us. And he didn't answer the phone very often. And he didn't come speak to us. And he didn't spend time with us. And now he wants us to galvanize behind him and get him to where he intends to go. How would you feel if you were in our position? How would you respond to that? And what are you going to do to prove to us in the next 4 weeks? I don't know how you're going to do that. That's like the shortest relationship ever. But how are you going to prove to us in the next 4 weeks that you are going to walk our walk, even in places where it might diverge with your personal opinion, because you're petitioning for the role of being our standard bearer? Like, you're coming to our house. Are you going to say our rules, or are you going to play by your own and demand that we help you? That's basically what I want to know.
Kim Ruff, libertarian leader, libertarian thinker.
Person?
Libertarian gal. How about that? Thanks again for joining us.
I like that.
All right. How about, are we allowed
Thanks,
to?
Pat. You have a beautiful night.
You too, buddy. And again, don't be a stranger, and listen in, and feel free to throw us some bombs, regardless of whether you agree or disagree. All right, buddy?
All right, honey. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network. CoalitionRadioNetwork.com. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. And, of course, the mothership at coalitionradio.us. Let us know how you feel about the waiting for Amash. It would appear he's here now, or at least he's exploring the option of being here. We've had a couple libertarians call in tonight. Rohan from Austin, Texas. The incomparable Kim Ruff from Arizona. She may have been our first Arizona caller. We're at that stage where we've been doing this for a few weeks. If you've got an opinion, feel free to call and weigh in. We would love to hear from you. So far, Mr. Amash is not exactly on the hit parade. And both Ron and Kim raised some significant issues with respect to his fledgling candidacy. Issues that cannot be ignored. Take a moment to thank our sponsors. You've seen their advertised local SEO. You've seen their video. We play that a couple of times a night. The Yacht Club Soda, theyachtclubsoda.com, Yacht Club Bottling Works. The folks at Air Sciences, mold remediation and home disinfection. Beacon Shipping and Logistics, 1-855-3-SHIP-IT. You've got a vehicle that is going anywhere in the country, from anywhere in the country. These are the guys to call, 1-855-3-SHIP-IT. So here we are, coming upon the 11 o'clock hour. Going to squeeze in if there's any callers in the last few minutes. The night started out with a new friend of the show, an old friend of the show, coming to us in a new format, Joe Calabro. He of producer fame, if you will, for the last version of Coalition when we were at Go Local Prov. By the way, great site to go to, golocalprov.com. A lot of interesting news. They are a digital news producer, both on web and video, here in the Providence area. We enjoyed a long relationship with them, where we had the opportunity to go out on our own. We'll share their pieces from time to time. A lot of it's locally focused here in the Rhode Island market, but the primary news reporter, Kate Nagel, does news the old-fashioned way. A lot of shoe leather. They're very good at going out and reporting influences and connections between government appointees, government organizations. She's pretty good at that. So we enjoy the work that she does. Joe is a former producer there. He's gone off on his own now. So it's, he, of course, would always talk about golf when we were ever together. He's got a new site. That's going to be a lot of fun. GolfNewsRI.com. They break down golf news, the business of golf, resources for learning the game. And I think one of the more interesting aspects, they'll have folks who just did a round somewhere send a review in, what you liked about the course. You want to focus on the positive, but, constructively worded criticisms are welcome as well. So just in time for the summer golfing season, golfnewsri.com. Hoping Joe's going to join us live from time to time here on the Coalition. There'll be a link on our page. And I guess you can just call us partners, friends and partners. But indie media, whether it be hyper-focused on a particular sport, on the news, it's all important. In an era when the hometown newspaper really doesn't exist anymore, there are great hometown websites, by the way. In addition to Go Local Prov, you've got RI Future. I'm sorry, RI Future is Stop Publishing. Let me get that right. Tony Jones, Motif Magazine, which has got an online component as well. Steve Alquist does Noble Reporting. So there's a lot of resources from local homegrown, truly home, not only homegrown, but still based in home organizations. Bill Bartholomew. There's some pretty good stuff out there that we bring to your attention. So we're asking folks, if you're listening to us on the Facebook, give us a try at coalitionradionetwork.com. Same viewing experience, same screen. Very simple, easy to load site. We'll have some notes about some upcoming shows on there. Same production values. Just the ability to look out at it outside of social media. We're also on Twitter. You can watch us via the miracle of Periscope. Periscope is a video program integrated into the Twitter experience. So after the show is over, you have the opportunity to view it then. So we bring that to your attention. Lots of opportunities to view stuff. You can tweet at us. It's all good. We're going to take a very brief break right now. We'll be right back. And we are back. Give us a call if you like, 401 205 3738. A couple of fine libertarians have weighed in. This is not libertarian only radio. If you want to discuss issues local to Rhode Island, local to New England, if you'd like to talk about the notion that we talked about early in the show about the federal government bailing out states' pension programs and literally anything else that can be thrown into the goodie bag that becomes part of the conversation centering around COVID-19 relief, feel free to do that as well. Ultimately, the beauty of talk radio is that the callers actually drive the show. We've got your shows coming up this week. Well, 8 o'clock on Friday night, we'll have the Candidates Hour. Sometime in the next few days, we'll have a local activist named Robert Cushman. He focuses on local pension-related issues and governmental budget issues in one of the significant cities, Rhode Island style, a city called Warwick, Rhode Island. So we do have plenty of stories on Friday night. Friday night's a big night in the coalition. A big night. We're going to welcome back this Friday night someone who's been away for a few weeks. Someone who I count as a friend, and someone whose academic prowess I respect. Professor Andy Hernandez is with the Western New Mexico University. Andy Hernandez, PhD. We met him during our trip to Deming, New Mexico. We talk about it often on the show. We're going to be pulling together a presentation on that shortly. Our experiences for a few days down on the New Mexico border. He talks about border wars, drug wars, the history of the Texas-New Mexico Mexican border. A very vivid history, a very violent history. He teaches a course about the drug wars. I want him to teach that on here. Definitely want to do that. I'm going to try and get him to just focus for an hour. One he comes on about once a month. A lot of these issues get sort of lost in the sauce, if you will, during times of other crises. Yet people still live on the borders. People still try to move across the border. The president has, quote unquote, sealed the border. The implications of the border wall. All of that we cover. Here on the Coalition. We routinely broadcast our podcasts, which are done via Spreaker and are available on the iHeart platform. There's a number of people who used to join us regularly when we were on Go Local Prob. We'll be bringing them back in. Amy Gardner is someone I hope will be coming in. She talks about informed consent, medical freedom. Hope to have Mark Flatten from the Goldwater Institute again soon. Victor Matheson has joined us. He of the College of the Holy Cross, sports economist par excellence. This past week, we had Never Again Rhode Island. Daryl Gould, who not only has been a sponsor of the show in the past, is an activist in terms of educational issues in the East Bay of Rhode Island, Warren, Barrington, Bristol, particularly in the Bristol Warren School District. Talks about educational issues that are really fundamental to every school. So that's some of the programming that we have. What are your thoughts? 401-205-3738. What are your thoughts? If you'd like to add to the argument, please do. If you're in favor of Justin Amash, by the way, I'd love to hear from you. I may not be, unless certain very strong conditions are met. But if you are, this is the type of place where you can call, and I might have a couple of questions for you, but we're not going to disrespect, if you will, your right to an opinion. We're not going to disrespect you personally. Not into that. We are outrage porn free. So we would love to hear from you if you actually support a Justin Amash presidency. Feel free to call us. 401-205-3738. We have Luis Daniel Munoz on. The good doctor joins us. I think we're trying to get him on for Thursday night, if not before then. That's some of the programming we do here. So look as we continue to try to step it up. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. The polls, there's polls all over Facebook. (401-205-3738). Someone I'd love to have on the show sometime soon is Apollo Pizzell. If you haven't met Apollo, I should reach out to him tonight. Trying to get him to call in. Talking about something called the Frontier Project. I'd love him to develop that. If you're a libertarian, And it's a fascinating exercise. It's a really focused exercise of getting libertarians elected. Longtime lurker Frank says Kim Ruff is doing just great. Lots of folks on Facebook and social media weighing in. The important thing, though, is what do you think about Justin Amash running? What do you think about the federal government bailing out states' pension funds? What's happening with COVID-19 in your community? And if you're just joining us for the first time tonight, we've had several callers tonight from the Libertarians' perspective. But if you're interested in chatting with someone about your thoughts on Rhode Island's response, political issues here in Rhode Island. What's your thoughts on the ACLU? We had them in here earlier this week. Hmm. 401-205-3738. Seems like most nights after 11 Eastern time, we kind of hit the wall. If you're kind enough to still be listening, this project has been online now for about 3+ weeks. Trying to figure out where our space is on this. What works doesn't one. If you haven't had a chance, take a moment and listen to a handful of our interviews. We're talking about how to put them together in one spot so people who are interested in some alternative candidates to the Bidens and Trumps of the world. Four 401-205-3738. If you're just joining us, we've seen a few people. I could actually kind of see who's in a variety. By the way, we do this on Facebook. We do this on a couple different social media sites. We see folks coming and going on sort of a topside basis. You've got concerns or questions, we'd love to hear from you. We took it to 2 o'clock last night. Two o'clock in the morning. We were on till. Talked about a whole lot of stuff. Jared Martin, if you're listening, you made the comment, LP would be a disaster to abandon the opportunity Amash presents. I might have said that 6 or 8 months ago. I'm just increasingly in the group of folks who are frustrated by the late entree into the race. Very frustrated at that. By the way, Pat Walsh, to answer your question, here's a controversial take. I believe everyone should have the right to vote. I don't believe you give up your right to vote. By the way, people in Pat Walsh, if you listen to this later on, in Rhode Island, I believe this is still the law, that if you are given a lifetime sentence without parole, you are effectively considered by the state of Rhode Island to be dead. We did a show on that about a year ago with an ACLU lawyer. If I don't think you're listening, and I miss a question, I'll try and answer it online. I'll give you my opinion. So I think we're going to wind it down for the evening in just a couple minutes. Again, enjoyable evening here. Callers, guests. About indie media is you don't. We still need to buy a lot more software and gear to make this completely smooth. So, we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage-born free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network here at coalitionradionetwork.com. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course the mothership at coalitionradio.us. Give us a call tomorrow night. We'll be back on. We're finding out that coming on around 7:30 or so is just right. Lining up some guests for tomorrow evening. Big night Friday. Please join us. If you can, take a moment and follow us on the YouTube, subscribe to us. We're making some extra effort there to get that going. Regardless, if you spent a few minutes with us tonight, we're grateful, and we hope you'll join us again. Signing off. Have a wonderful night.